Good morning, USA! Hello! My name is DJ. And it looks like it's time. It is time. It is time. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Hello. Thank you to that member, Retro Mike, for being a member. Good morning, everybody. As if you haven't checked out the Discord, I'll say this a couple times throughout the stream. Please do. Did I put the link in the description below? I don't think I did. Well, please do check us out. Our sponsor is Cryptee, makes this cool t-shirt, our logo. Also, Flux, Ergo, Ravencoin, Bitcoin, everything you can think of. All the crypto stuff. Check them out. Cryptee. Link in the description. That'll save you 10% off. Thank you everyone who supports the channel. Doesn't have to be financially by that. You do not have to support financially. Just being here is a form of support, and I do appreciate all of you, and I love you guys. Are you guys ready? Are you ready for this fun time? It's gonna be 2 hours, so we're an hour and a half, I think. Whatever. Do you know what I mean, man? Give me one thing. Yeah, it's already in the description. Nice. Hi from Stockholm. I don't... Oh, I've never heard of that place, but I don't... never been there. Hello. Thank you. Is the fan too loud, guys? I could turn it down. That buzzing? Is it like a buzzing sound you're hearing? By any chance? 100 people watching, but only 20 likes? What is this? Hit that like... You moving to Ergo today? Why would I move today? For what? What would I move to Ergo for? Why today? Good morning. What's up, hobbyist? Not loud at all? What's not loud? Oh, the fan? Okay. Because if I turn these fans off, I'm going to be dying. No problem, fan side. What's up, JP? What's up, everybody? Hello, my name Habib Miner. I have addiction to GPU. 114 viewers, guys, but only 38 likes. What the heck, man? Get your butts right now. Tell your baby mamas, your grandmas, your side chicks, we're live. Join the Discord. It's right here. Link in the description. Get your ass in the Discord. We got lots of people you could talk to. And you don't always have to talk to me directly. You could just talk to everybody. It's awesome. Be a part of a community. I need to start playing games there. I think I will start playing games there at night. Not all the time, not every day, but on the weekend. You need to overlay. So do you guys... Oh, here we go. Hold up.
We have plenty of merge things to discuss today, and if there's any time left over,
do you guys want me to make myself smaller, or do you like me big? Because they don't show anything. You just hear them the whole time. Let me know. Watch me plus them, or watch them but they don't do anything ever.
I guess is the Ropsten issue that we saw yesterday. Does anyone want to give a quick recap? I wrote a recap, but if anyone else wants to just run through
Ropsten issue right off the bat.
Great. Okay.
I believe that's your job, Tim.
Okay. I guess I'll read from my document. But high level, what we saw is the Ropsten hash rate go up like 20-30x overnight. We always knew this could happen, but previously people did not mess with Ropsten as much. And this kind of led the network to hit the terminal total difficulty for the merge before the beacon chain for Ropsten
was
even live. So Genesis is scheduled for May 30th, I believe. And this kind of just put things in a weird spot where like validators were, or sorry, upgraded nodes kind of thought that TTD had been hit, but the beacon chain did not exist yet. And the amount of like money that it costs to raise the hash rate on Ropsten is quite trivial. So, you know, even if we raise the TTD like twice, 3 times, 10x, it's quite possible somebody might just mine enough, might just invest enough to mess with that number as well. And so basically, in order to prevent that, we've kind of moved to a solution where we override the TTD to an incredibly large number, have the beacon chain go live, have Bellatrix happen on the beacon chain, and then override the TTD again to a number that we expect to happen fairly soon. So that means that like up to Bellatrix being activated, it's basically impossible that we would hit the TTD. The number we chose was about twice the total difficulty on the Ethereum mainnet, which on Ropsten's hash rate would take about 250 years to hit. So we're safe there. But then, yeah, once Bellatrix is hit, the plan is to choose another TTD, which we expect to happen soon. And
What's TTD again? I remember they talked about it last week. I forget.
I guess just for people listening, you know, this can't really happen on mainnet, and the reason is that for this to happen, you know, well, this was caused because the beacon chain was basically not live yet, and because of how hard it is to predict hash rate on testnets and how variable it is. Obviously, on mainnet, the beacon chain is live, so that's not a problem. But then there's still this potential problem of like, what if TTD was hit before the Bellatrix upgrade was live on the beacon chain? And there, the reasoning is, well, we can predict hash rate, you know, fairly well on mainnet, and most likely than not, hash rate would be going down rather than up because we approach the merge. So the odds that like a ton of hash rate would join the network and force us to hit TTD much earlier than expected is quite low. And depending on like, you know, like basically if we saw hash rate 2x overnight on mainnet, it means there's like now enough new hash rate to conduct the 51% attack, and like proof of work security guarantees weaken a lot by that point. So we can have like pretty reasonable bounds on the TTD on mainnet. And the worst case is usually like it just happens later than we would expect. But yeah, for testnets, given that like Gordy is obviously on proof of work, and Ropsten is obviously on proof of work, and it's easy to manipulate. Same with Sepolia. It seems like what makes the most sense is just saying this very high number, let Bellatrix happen, and then sell it to another TTD that's much lower.
Easy to manipulate. Okay, got that.
So yeah, one question I have is, why do we need the TTD in Bellatrix? Why not just make Bellatrix? If we don't specify a TTD for Bellatrix, then we will look at the TTD from the ETH1 chain, or the TD from the ETH1 chain, and just ignore it because we don't have a TTD set. And so
You're talking about the testnet attack.
I'm a bit confused why we need to set the TTD for Bellatrix to happen, and why we should not just schedule Bellatrix and then set the TTD.
Do you mean that why do we need TTD to be a part of CL client's binary? Or do you mean that why do we need to set TTD like to like deploy a real TTD within the Bellatrix?
Why do we have to have it in one release? I guess we don't. But
I'm gonna throw out an answer in the spirit of the internet, and saying something wrong, someone will correct me. I believe the reason is that the consensus clients as currently written, Bellatrix they expect a TTD to be available with Bellatrix. Like they need something for that value. They need to put something in there because they have a constant somewhere in their code, and they need to set it to something. And so we need some number to be in that spot when Bellatrix goes live, or when the Bellatrix clients are released, I should say. That number can be giant.
Hit that like button.
You hit max, that's fine. But it needs to be something. And that's why when we talk about we need a TTD for Bellatrix, I believe that is the reason. Now someone can correct me.
Yes, but as I understand what Marius was saying is that we can put a placeholder then for a TTD value, a pretty large number, and then wait for Bellatrix to happen, then like cut release, another like series of releases of clients with the real TTD. Is that what you mean, Marius?
Yes, or like the easiest way and the way I would just like I would have thought that clients would have implemented it is if we don't specify a TTD with Bellatrix, then the Bellatrix fork will update the make the consensus changes, but not verify the TD from the execution layer chain against what we don't have. So
I guess given that all the testing of like the past year has happened with a TTD on Bellatrix, it's probably much safer, like, and it achieves the same outcome to just have like a really high value rather than to try and change the code now and have it say like, if there's nothing, do this. Is there like, I'm curious to hear, there's a couple of CL folks on the call, like, I don't know, do you feel more comfortable with one way or the other?
I think it's like, I actually think it's fine to set it to some really high number.
Okay.
But
yeah,
I'm just like, I think it's a bad design decision to
much better start so far
previously, and we can like, it doesn't make sense to turn it around now. It's just for the
I think it's like not a big deal now. I mean, we can set it to like very large number. But yeah, this is what we're gonna do on Sepolia. But on the main net, what we're gonna do with the Sepolia is to set a real TTD after Bellatrix happens, right? But yeah, for the main net, I'm not sure about that. That's like, do we want to have 2 releases?
Sounds like they're not too phased
So
about
as
the
I mentioned,
the
I'll
attack.
say here just for
yes.
as I
I
mentioned,
think we would want to have 2 rounds of upgrades. Sorry.
Yeah, and the reason for that, for those listening in who don't follow Discord, is that having your test nets follow the exact same pattern as your production network is very valuable. It also impacts third parties. So third parties who want to be able to follow the Sepolia upgrade, and they set up the
Hey, like this tweet if you guys can, retweet it if you can. This is saying we're live for the ETH Dev call. Thank you.
and all these things, having that be exactly the same for testnets and mainnet, with the only difference being like, you know, whether it runs on client A or host A or host B, is very valuable for those people. And so I think it is important that we should follow the exact same procedure for the mainnet launch as for Sepolia launch, even if it feels kind of unnecessary on mainnet due to difficulty being much harder to play with.
Yeah, I feel the same as what Mike is suggesting.
Yeah.
Does anyone?
How?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
They're talking about the attack.
I just wanted to ask about how much time would it take to upgrade a second time? Do we expect the like the same time to upgrade to users upgrading their nodes in both cases? So that's
can someone explain like really quickly what's in Bellatrix and why should we not just schedule it right now with a really high TTD and then set the TTD once in
So
mainnet Bellatrix, you mean?
For mainnet, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I guess for the same reason that we can't schedule the merge, I assume there's still some testing.
Can't schedule the merge still.
Well,
yeah.
but like scheduling the merge is something different, right?
Oh, right.
Like scheduling the merge means setting the TTD, and scheduling Bellatrix is, in my opinion, it should be, in my opinion, something different from scheduling the merge.
I'd be curious to hear from CL clients here, but it does feel like the code that like CL clients have today is not what they expect to have on mainnet, and I don't know what like the diff is here, but yeah.
Are you smoking? No, bro. I'm not putting a vape to my freaking
He
mouth.
said Prism, Teku folks.
Oh, bro, I'm eating.
For Teku, it depends when we schedule it, I think. I mean, I think we are basically production ready and could go, but if we're scheduling it a month out, then, you know, that would be fine. But yeah, it all depends on dates. Not having a date doesn't help. Having a date helps.
Yeah, I think that is same with Prism as well.
Okay, but so because like, you know, I don't think anyone is arguing that like we could run through the mainnet merge in a month, and so if it's like realistic that like Bellatrix could be scheduled and, you know, call it a month or two and give us some time to then then make it really easy to set the TTD. That's probably a discussion worth having on the CL call next week. But yeah, if I think that would, because the reason, I guess, to take a step back is I think the biggest downside I can see with this approach of 2 releases is just that you're just kind of waiting around for a while at the end, right? Like where you basically upgrade your client to Bellatrix, you know, and then Bellatrix happens, but kind of nothing happens on the network because Bellatrix is just waiting, and then you have to like run through this whole upgrade cycle again. And if we're just sitting around waiting, it's basically just a waste of time. But if we can save that, I think that's the biggest downside that there is in this approach.
So I think if all the clients have a TTD override config setting, I would be personally comfortable with having a fairly short time window between the TTD announcement and the TTD going live.
I think they sound like it's happening, guys.
You know, quickly
I know a lot
upgrade
of you
their
guys are
clients
saying it
if they
doesn't
need
sound
to
like
do
it's
some
happening.
additional testing or
I mean,
whatever.
they sound
You can simply
confident
just
enough.
do a TTD
They're doing it
override.
regardless, man.
Like you don't
That's
actually
what it sounds
need
like
to
to
do a
me.
full upgrade if you don't want. There's 2 options: TTD override or download a client that has the TTD baked in, and both of them are viable, and you can choose which one you want. But that makes me more comfortable that we don't need to, you know, have the usual, you know, 1 month between scheduling the hard fork and then the hard fork happening, because, you know, clients are already out there. They've been out there for 2 weeks already. We can just say in 2 weeks is when we're scheduling.
Right. This just assumes that the EL clients are already up there, which, like in this case where we schedule Bellatrix already, might not be true.
Yeah. That's like, I guess what I'm saying is I think the time between the all the clients being released,
Hit that like button if you guys can.
TTD hard coded to a giant number, and the time between the merge, that's the time period that matters. That choosing the TTD, you know, it does need to be some amount of time before the merge, but I don't think it needs to be the usual, like, you know, 1 month before the hard fork is all.
Yeah, I would agree there. I'm curious if anyone disagrees with that.
I disagree. Postpone it.
Okay, and I guess based on that, this can also be like different for testnets and mainnet. So given that for like Ropsten, we've basically agreed to a TTD of, I think it's 10 to the 32, if I'm right, but 10 to the something, which is about twice what's the number on mainnet. Clients, I think, are expected to have releases either today or Monday with this new value, and we're going to publish those like early next week. And then Bellatrix is expected to hit on June 3rd.
Bellatrix, June 3rd. Okay.
So Bellatrix is expected to hit next Friday on June 3rd, and because it's a beacon chain fork, they happen at an actual timestamp, so it's usually quite accurate. So that means like the quickest we could choose this new TTD value is like next Friday on June 3rd. How long after, you know, and then I expect we either need new client releases or not. Like we can also just tell users to run the TTD override flag. So like early in the week after, like around June 6th or 7th, we can probably have a blog post up with this announcement. How long after that do we want to wait until TTD happens on Ropsten, because the original plan
Forever.
was June 8th.
Wait
It
forever.
obviously seems incredibly close to have like a blog post on June 7th and hitting TTD on June 8th.
Push it back. Push it back.
What are people's thoughts about like that delay between, yeah, basically having chosen a TTD for Ropsten post Bellatrix and having it actually hit the network?
Just delay it a few months to a year to 2 years. Delay it. Just delay it. Go ahead, say it. Say we're not ready.
I think we should try to go for the date that we already set.
The 8th.
So June 6th or 8th, yes.
So that means we might be in a world where there's like a blog post announcement coming out on like the 7th, like all the clients are set already there, but then the fork happens, the TTD is hit on Ropsten like 24 hours later.
No, don't do it.
Wait, we don't. Am I correct in understanding that we don't expect clients to be ready until the 7th?
No, sorry. So actually, that's not true. We can be ready quicker than that. So I think what we can do is, I'm not sure what time Bellatrix is scheduled for on the 3rd, on Friday the 3rd. But basically, as soon as Bellatrix has happened, we can pick a TTD value, and maybe even like before. Like obviously, if we know that Bellatrix is going to happen in 3 hours, and we pick a TTD value that's like in 3 days or 4 days, and we can also pick a TTD value that's like in 10 days, and then add a hash rate to make that happen quicker. So like on the 3rd, we can probably have like agreement on a value, and then you don't need to update EL clients. They can all just pass a TTD override flag. And I suspect though, just like the time for us to decide a TTD value and then like kind of announce it to the community and whatnot, it means it probably happens on like the Monday that people get aware of it. And I guess we can make it quicker if we don't wait for client releases. Clients are obviously free to then release versions and like advertise them to your users, but we can have like a kind of an announcement that's just focused on the flags, with a note to, you know, that maybe your client will have a released version out.
46 people on the call. He says, does everybody
So
want to
that
do
means
it? One person says
basically
yes,
by
let's
Monday,
do
You
it.
can expect like the TTD is like known and communicated, and then you kind of have 48-ish hours before the fork hits on Ropsten.
Nobody spoke but one person. Hey guys, you guys want to do it? One person talks.
I think it's important for those listening in to understand that we do not have fine-grained control over when the merge happens exactly, like in terms of timestamps. And this is very, very true on testnets, and it is somewhat true on mainnet. Normally, when we schedule hard forks, we can get pretty close to where we want them to be. Like we shoot for a certain time of day. With the merge, everybody should be prepared for testnets and mainnet that we may get the day wrong. And for testnets, we may get the week wrong, as we saw with Ropsten, right? We got it way wrong by like several weeks. And with mainnet, I think being off by days is not unreasonable.
Yeah.
And so all users should be prepared for that. Like when we talk about scheduling things for the 8th, or scheduling things for, you know, this date or that date, users need to be aware. These are best guesses for us. We're trying our best, but the way things are designed, we don't actually have control. I mean, it's a censorship-resistant system that we don't actually control. We only make suggestions, and the system does what it does.
Right.
Interesting
And
to hear.
In practice, what this means is like, say we choose something on the 3rd, which we expect to be even, you know, like on the 13th, and we can then have hash power to like reach it a bit quicker. There is still a world where somebody like puts 100x the amount of hash rate on Ropsten, and it ends up hitting over the weekend, right? Like I don't think there's anything we can realistically do to prevent that. So yeah, there's on Ropsten, and this will also be true on Sepolia, there's like always a chance that like as soon as we pick the TTD value, somebody shows up and we hit it like hours instead of days later, just because the costs is so low to mine on those testnets.
Okay. So I mean, it's hard to predict exactly the day is all I'm getting, just because it's out of their
And if you're
control to some
listening,
extent.
please don't troll us.
You'll be disqualified from any future airdrops. kidding. There are no airdrops. Does anyone?
And
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mikhail.
yeah, I just wanted to clarify that we are setting a real TTD on 6, right?
We would set it on
Or
the 3rd, I think,
like choose
because at least it gives.
third.
At least I would prefer setting it on the 3rd because it gives people the weekend as well to upgrade, update their nodes. And the 3rd is when Bellatrix happens, so we can either set it a few hours before Bellatrix.
He's talking about
or a
GPU
few
miners in the
hours
chat.
after, but like probably around this time on the 3rd because this is when people are like generally online. And we might also like there's a consensus layer call on the 2nd, so I think on the 2nd we can maybe have like candidates TTDs and like that assume that things are stable, and then assuming like nothing goes crazy before Bellatrix, we can probably reuse just one of those candidates. Yeah.
Okay, I see. Yeah. I think it makes sense. And yeah, as far as I remember, it's gonna happen like the Bellatrix is gonna happen like at 10 p.m. UTC. I'll just double check it.
Okay, so that means it's like this right now is like 2 p.m. UTC, so that means Bellatrix is happening like quite late. It's happening like 6 hours from now. I still think we can probably set a TTD value like around this time, but it does become a bit more risky that like someone could just mine a bunch, and I don't know how much it would cost to like bring something that's like 2 weeks out to happen in like less than 6 hours.
They're so trolling the GPU miners right now in chat. I don't know if you can read it. Not my chat, their chat. They are trolling us. They know that we're watching them right now.
So there's a question in the chat like, why can't we keep it really high and reduce it the day before? It's basically it's like the lag between we need to communicate this number to people. Like we can't just like choose. I mean, in a perfect like if we controlled everything over the network, we could literally choose a TTD and have it activate 20 minutes later, and we would have really high precision. But it's like, how much time do we give people to like look at their clients' announcements, read the blog post? And so it feels like on the order of a couple days is like the minimum. And given this is a test net, I think for mainnet we probably want something even longer, assuming we need to go that route. But yeah.
It's actually going to happen on June 2nd at 10 p.m. UTC, from what I can see from the configs.
Okay, nice. Okay, perfect. So
Bellatrix, you mean?
Yes. Okay, so that means then I think on the CL call next week, we can have a bunch of candidate TTDs. And then at the very least, people will be aware of like what are the options. And then we can reconfirm that number basically 24 hours after the CL call, once Bellatrix has happened. So that did like Friday, 1400 UTC roughly, we have a TTD for Ropsten. Does that make sense?
I mean, they're pretty confident. It's definitely happening. The exact time, as they explained, they can't really give out, but I mean, that doesn't matter too much.
I also have a comment, or kind of an idea. Does it make sense to schedule the Bellatrix on the mainnet and cut it in the same release as like the merge release for Gurley, and set it like 2 weeks after Gurley? And if everything goes well on Gurley, then we can just have this kind of probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or whatever we find reasonable.
And that would be basically after Gordy, and that means Bellatrix on mainnet would happen roughly around the same time as like the merge on Sepolia or something.
I'm not familiar with Sepolia. Is that the next testnet?
What do you mean?
So like
I thought that
Gordy's the next testnet. I think I thought
Gordy.
Ropsten, Gordy, Sepolia, basically.
Oh, sorry. Then I just mixed them.
Okay.
The Gordy and the
So
Sepolia. The last one.
there's one thing that setting early Bellatrix epoch might trigger. There's a lot of validators that are running, they're not running an F1 node. And for those guys, setting Bellatrix will force them to actually sync. So we need to give them time at least and advertise that they need to start syncing their engines and that they need to be synced by the time that Bellatrix hits.
Okay, that's a great point. Yeah.
Which might actually be a nice feature because by the time TTDs hit, then we know that people are definitely synced.
Yeah. Okay, so it seems like there is like a general feeling that we can do Bellatrix earlier than mainnet, than the TTD on mainnet. I would move this conversation to the CL call next week just to make sure that like we have all the CL teams chiming in. And Danny's not on this call today, but I'll make sure to like also bring him up to speed on this, and so he's aware, and we can kind of draft what that could look like. But either something like alongside the last testnet, so that then when we move to mainnet, we're just setting the TTD. We know Bellatrix has happened, and from
I still don't know what Bellatrix is though. Ropsten, Gorelia, I don't know how to say it. Gorelia, Sepolia, main.
Like slight improvements.
Where does Bellatrix fall into that?
Changes.
Yeah, we should also consider that once Bellatrix happens, then CL will start querying EL for at least for the exchange transition configuration. And if EL is not upgraded, it will start complaining and put messages in the logs. So we should also consider that.
This is a much better dev call than last week. Last 2 weeks, I'd say.
If you're querying an EL that doesn't have like the Paris code, basically, then it will send weird log messages. Is that right?
Yeah, and it will try to connect to engine API endpoint. So we will have to release ELs as well, and ELs should be upgraded as well.
So that means
like the Bellatrix happens, yeah.
So we need ELs to be at least aware that there's a thing called the engine API, which only happens in like a specific release with like EIP 3675. Is that correct?
Right. It's
so you're saying Bellatrix
Paris,
is
right?
the merge?
Yeah. Okay,
it's just so why are they calling it that?
Have to release code. Yeah, we'll have to release.
Just another
Paris
word for the merge. Is that what you're saying?
Probably at the same time. And yeah, the upgrade should happen. The upgrade to Paris should happen before Bellatrix hits the mainnet.
I believe, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe if you took a client today, like the Ropsten client, let's say whatever client you guys are using to test the execution layer on Ropsten, that should work through mainnet as long as you set TTD override. Is that correct? Assuming we don't have to change anything between now and then, assuming no code changes. Like a person doesn't even need to upgrade their client from now until the merge. They just need to set the TTD. Is that accurate? Assuming they're running a Ropsten client today. Like they just like, switch it over to mainnet and they're good.
They need to change the chain config, of course, but other than that, they can use the same software. Does Geth not release one client with many chain configs, and it's not just like -- config mainnet? Yeah.
Like they actually. Okay. Yeah. So in theory, people can upgrade today, like their whole setup. They can upgrade Paris, Bellatrix clients today, and so again, assuming no changes, they're good to go for the merge. Is that more or less accurate?
Now I get how it works. We 2 dev calls.
Well, not for Aragon, because as discussed, we've only prepared an alpha quality release. We still are making fixes and improvements for the merge.
Okay.
Right, and I think to be clear, like what Mikhail's plan was, we do this when we're doing like the last test net. And so we would hope that by then clients have like releases that are very close, if not exactly the same, that like will hit mainnet.
Thank you, Retro.
Yeah.
Yes, the plan is simple because I don't think we would like to have the Bellatrix scheduled before the last test net is upgraded, and some time plus on top of this upgrade, right, to give us time to react if anything goes wrong.
Click the like button if you like this video, guys, please.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Thinking like Bellatrix happens like a few weeks to a month after the last testnet upgrade, basically, and it's scheduled at the same time. Yeah.
Yes, and yeah, if everything goes right and if everything is okay, we just don't need to cut new releases and go with it.
Yeah, and I mean, clients, I suspect in practice, some clients might choose to cut the new release with the updated TTD value, but yeah, it's not like a strict requirement, basically.
I think that clients should release that clients should be released with the real TTD value, but users will have a choice between like upgrading and or overriding.
Oh, right. And POTUS has a comment that like the TTD override value isn't required in this spec. So like,
I threw you guys on the chat too. Okay.
Really, like, you know, this from a spec perspective, like the client releases are the way that this happens. And then, but yeah, we would just probably list both. And if some clients just does one or the other, we could just highlight that. It's not the end of the world. So I guess just to like recap all this. So for Ropsten specifically, you know, clients are going to put out releases in the next days with the huge TTD value. If you've already downloaded a client release, by the way, that had Ropsten TTD support for like the value we hit yesterday, you do need to upgrade your TTD value to the new one. We'll have an announcement about that. Basically, we'll have an announcement about the new Ropsten clients early next week, which will have this really high TTD hard-coded in it. And then once Bellatrix has happened on June 2nd, we'll choose, I guess, realistic TTD number that will confirm on June 3rd. We will probably choose that to happen like in theory 10 or so days from then, but then we'll try and add some hash rate for it to happen around June 8th. But that's like a very rough target. We can't really guarantee that.
No guarantee.
That generally makes sense to people
for that date. It's in the ballpark.
Okay, and then for mainnet, we'll confirm this on the CL call next week. But the rough idea would be that when we have the client releases go out for Sepolia, which we expect to be quite final, we would also then set a slot height or slot fork epoch. I'm not sure what the right term is on the CL side, but basically we would set the epoch or slot number on the beacon chain where Bellatrix happens on mainnet, meaning that then once that has happened, we can just choose a TTD value that's like a couple weeks away, and all users will have to do then is update either update their clients or run a TTD override flag to have the right value for mainnet. Yeah. Does anyone have like strong objections for that?
No one will say anything except for that one guy. Okay, that's a good breakdown.
Polis, what do you mean about the JWT stuff?
Oh, so the engine is supposed to be a secured connection. I'm not really following how it is, but I thought that clients haven't, execution clients are not really finished with that. So I'm not sure if they're actually enforcing that it's authenticated. So I'm just wondering whether or not having this finished before we set up the Bellatrix 4 epoch is a requirement or not.
Yes.
So for Geth, we have the authentication finished and required on 8551. You can optionally enable the engine API on the default HTTP port, so 8545, without authentication, if you want to test something. The only issue is that if we don't specify if you don't have a TTD specified, the
merge is definitely happening, dude.
Authenticated
100%.
port will not be opened, and this is something that we're thinking about changing. That we have the authenticated port open by default, even without TTD specified, so that you can test.
Okay.
So that you can test your stuff without having to.
Since they're not saying a whole lot here, I'll give you guys a quick little recap because they're not really saying anything important. We're kind of waiting for like the next step. From my understanding, and also thanks to all of your clarification, and he just reiterated, whoever that was speaking there, where is it? If you need the TLDR so far. So we're at Ropsten. We started that 2 weeks ago, I believe. We're already in that test net, the test phase. Then we're going to, I don't know how to pronounce this, Gorley, something like that. I don't know the exact pronunciation. Then we go to the final stages, which is Sepolia, and from my understanding, that's the goal is roughly 8 through 10 June for the merge. They can't give a specific date due to the hash rate. They don't have full control over everything that is going on with that, but somewhere in the ballpark of 8 to 10 June, or is that the start of Sepolia? That might be the start of Sepolia. I'm not really 100% sure, but they're very adamant on that 8 to 10 June range. And again, they cannot really control exactly what day, exactly what time, but we have ballpark answers right now, and it definitely sounds like it's happening.
Possible with the authentication.
So it seems, yeah, from the EL side, at least we're good. I do think that we should not be forking the last testnets until it's like implemented across, like it should be the default behavior across every client. But assuming that it is, then it means that we can obviously, that this is not a problem to schedule Bellatrix on mainnet as well. Does that make sense? Okay. Anything else just regarding Ropsten and like this kind of TTD Bellatrix timing? Okay. If not, I think the next thing I'd want to chat about is like the Sepolia beacon chain. So the actual first problem we hit on Ropsten was not this Bellatrix scheduling, but it was like the beacon chain did not even exist, which obviously is not the case on the Ethereum mainnet. So what are people's thoughts about like when and how we should launch the Sepolia beacon chain to make sure that we don't hit a similar issue on when we reach Sepolia?
What are the constraints to prevent us from releasing this Sepolia beacon chain like right now? Like what's the thing that's holding us back?
Perry?
There's nothing holding us back. We could launch one next week if we want. It's just a bit of coordination, that's all.
I feel like we should just do that then.
See?
If there's nothing actually preventing us from doing this soon, we should just focus on doing that coordination and making it happen so we don't have to worry about it later.
Okay. Should we just launch it and leave the Bellatrix information unset so when we then decide that at a future call?
I think.
Yeah,
go ahead.
My personal preference, and this is as not a client developer, so I could be totally wrong on this, would just be, so with the execution clients, you can set them so that like with Genesis, they already have a bunch of forks set, like right at Genesis block. Is there a reason we can't just launch the beacon chain with Bellatrix already live from day one, just with the TTDs of infinite? So the Bellatrix code is ready, but the TTD is far in the future.
So we can also do that. I think there's some clients that don't allow you to set it to happen at Genesis, but it can happen at Epoch 1, which isn't that different, 6 minutes later.
Sure.
But yeah, we can do that and just set TTD to be in.
That's my vote. But...
Yeah, I think their argument towards not having Bellatrix at first is like it mirrors more what we have on mainnet. So like the current beacon chain mainnet basically has Altair activated but not Bellatrix. So I can see an argument that like we would yeah, I could see an argument that like we would want to maybe replicate the mainnet conditions, but it's not like it's super strong.
Yeah.
Hit that like button.
Maybe we just at least have it so we have Genesis and then reach finality, and then Altair, reach finality, and then Bellatrix, and then reach finality. So at least we go through like the full life cycle on each fork.
Right,
like you said,
yeah, what I mean is there might be
reality.
some coordination things we want to test for Bellatrix, right? Like that there might be value in selling Bellatrix at like a future date so that we can like do something with it. But yeah, I don't see any issues against like doing Genesis and Altair. I guess the one thing I would maybe say, oh, sorry, Perry, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that. Like we can have Genesis and Altair and just leave Bellatrix as it is because we still haven't reached a final decision on how we're going to handle mainnet. And once we know how we're going to do it on mainnet, we can then replicate the same thing on Sepolia.
Okay. And my only final question. Oh yeah, Miguel, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the same. Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing Barry said.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, my last point was just, is this just something we want to check on the CL call with the CL teams as well? Because like they run the software for that. Like there's no rush to do it like this week versus next week. We just want to do it like well before Sepolia forks. So is it worth just like sanity checking this on the CL call a week from now?
I personally see no problem with Perry launching the Sepolia beacon chain over the weekend on his own.
I guess
Hiveos keeps logging me out, man. What the hell? Come on, Hiveos, fix your stuff.
I don't actually care.
Again, Prison Teku, I'm gonna single you out.
Yeah, I think since it takes so little time to actually set one up, we can just wait until the CL call next week. I think the 1 week difference is not going to make a change. We're not going to merge Sepolia next week or the week after anyway.
Okay. Oh, nice. I just saw
What's up, Sebs? Hey, buddy.
Sorry, I had missed you before. Okay, sounds good. So, like, yeah, we'll cover that as well next week on the CL call. But basically, it seems like at least from the EL side, we have agreement that we want to launch it as soon as possible, run it through Altair, and then wait a bit to figure out what we do for Bellatrix.
If you ever need a referral link for Hiveos, not the best time to announce it, but there it is.
On Sepolia.
A quick question about Bellatrix, just for my own edification and others listening. Does Bellatrix contain any consensus changes that happen before TTD, or is it just code that all activates on TTD? Like, is there a Bellatrix fork that is not the TTD?
Yes, consensus changes. It has changes in, yes, it has changes in the block body structure at least. And yep.
Okay,
and
so there
before,
is, so the Bellatrix
it monitors
on the consensus layer,
like, sorry.
Go ahead, I think I'm lagging, so go ahead.
Yeah, it's just, it monitors for execution payload to be non-zero. And it also looks for EL to end queries, whether the block, the terminal, a terminal block exists. But yeah, that's what it is.
So if you have two clients and they need to coordinate when Bellatrix happens prior to TTD, like is there a Bellatrix hard fork on the consensus layer that happens, and then at some point later TTD hits, and then more changes occur? Or is it just, you know, you deploy your clients whenever, as long as they're before TTD, and it doesn't matter when before TTD? Like, is there actually wire protocol changes that will cause clients to get disconnected from the network if they are not on Bellatrix while their peers are on Bellatrix?
Yeah,
but
so
TTD is not yet hit.
they all need to change at the fork, and then they wait until TTD.
Number-based fork?
Basically, that would mean that
There's a fork epoch.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm gonna mute them for a second. So I will give these guys credit, as you know, last week was last week was slow start. Didn't really get to what we wanted to hear, which, to be honest, they never really got to what we wanted to hear, but they did mention it just slightly at the very end, that they were going through with it at the very end. And this week's much better, in my opinion, because right off the bat, they went straight into it. What everybody wants to hear. They talked about the attack that someone trolled them with right off the bat. That was like the first thing, so I have to give them credit on that. They've explained the merge date. It's more of like a tentative thing. They can't really give you like an exact date, so they let you know it's in the ballpark of like a day or two, maybe hours or weeks or something, but there's no like specific date. It's literally out of their control. And then they explain the stages, the Ropsten, Gorley, again, I probably butchering that, Gorley, and then Sepolia, and then Main, right off the bat. And they've gone into what people want to hear pretty much right off the bat. So I have to give them credit. Instead of waiting 2 hours, they just went straight into it. So credit to the devs on this call as opposed to the other two calls that we've watched.
Only, even if it's only been like a few days, but I don't like. I suspect we will have some people staying on the wrong side for Ropsten because like they missed the announcement. I don't know. I don't know how much more we can do for that, and like how valuable it is. Like if you're just still running on your Ropsten proof of work fork because you didn't read the memo until 2 weeks later, like how bad that is basically. Yeah, I don't know. Do people have thoughts on that?
I guess my main thought there is we have been saying for a while that Ropsten will be deprecated. And the only reason we're going through all of this effort to make it nice is for the people who want to test the merge through it. So if anyone's not interested in testing the merge, then we don't have to really worry about them because it's a deprecated network from their perspective.
I'll buy a new chair when I raise the money. So I ain't raising no money on this chair, I can tell you that. Times are hard out here.
I think that makes sense.
So I ain't getting no new chair. This is all you get.
Nodes are actively involved. It's hard to know from a nodes perspective. I think we can generally reach like most infrastructure and tooling providers quite easily on quite short notice. And especially like I think a lot of them are following Ropsten now because of like the issues we saw yesterday. So I think it's kind of clear to people that something is happening on Ropsten, but the long tail of people is just really hard. I don't know of a good way to do it beyond just having many announcements. And that's also, I guess the cost of getting it wrong is quite low. If you're just a random person running a node and at some point you realize you're off the wrong chain and you kind of do a Google search and see that there was an upgrade on Ropsten. Yeah, does that make sense? Okay, cool. Okay. Anything else on like their Ropsten, Sepolia?
Not to defend the devs. However, a lot of you are saying, basically giving up on proof of work. If you look into it, actually, Ethereum has been very upfront about moving to proof of stake since pretty much the very beginning, if you really look into it. So, yeah, obviously I'm not a fan of that, and most of you probably aren't either. However, this isn't a secret. This isn't a rug pull. This has always been their plan. And yes, it's been delayed for a long time, and tons of us have made money, and there's people who've made way more money than you and I. But yeah, you know, to say this is just a surprise, it's really not. If you look at the history, it's since the very beginning of Ethereum, they've announced that was their end state and their plan. So, you know, you gotta at least say that.
Current Gordy signers, is that right?
Yeah, I prepared my Gurley signer to also validate Prata, so I'm on both sides of the merge.
Nice. Okay. Anything else just on testnets generally? If not, there was an engine API PR that Danny wanted to bring up, but Danny did not make the call. I don't know if anyone else had context on this. Basically adding the get payload bodies by range PR to the engine API. Mikhail, I saw you chimed in on this as well.
Yeah, I can briefly describe the idea of this proposal. So, yeah, so there are two methods instead of just requesting payload bodies, which is a list of transactions just by hashes. There is another one, bodies by range, which means that there are two parameters: the start parameter and the number of payloads to which bodies are requested from the EL, and EL is optional for EL client to support by range request, and this by range request is about to leverage the linear storages, which are and make this kind of optimal queries over linear storages, which is not the case for bodies by hash. And if by range is not supported, there is a error code in this PR, and CL should fall back to by hash, which is basically called bodies by root, but yeah, I'm calling it bodies by hash because there is no roots, there is no root notion on the EL side. So that's basically the idea of this proposal.
I don't think ETH will become the next Luna. It's kind of impossible.
Why should we return? Like, if the middling block hash is missing and we don't have it, why should we return? Why should we not return anything? Why should we not return just nil, but just cut it out? I think my intuition would be if you're requesting n blocks, you're getting n responses, and some of the responses might be nil.
I think it's better to address why PR comments. So let's have a discussion there. Yep.
I mean,
Okay.
you gotta think everybody who
I guess it's
stakes
EL
is
client
stuck,
who's gonna
right?
chime in on this in the next couple weeks.
So they're always gonna have those people, no matter what.
This
if they're
proposal
locked
is
in.
before the merge goes live, or what's the timelines here, and why is?
If you think about it, like once they, you know, if they're throwing in a minimum of 32 ETH, that 32 ETH is stuck. They're not taking it out. You can't take it out. That's it, right? So it's built in a way where, you know, the fact that they won't allow you to freely use your coins once you've thrown them in, you know, it keeps people in Ethereum, right? Not you and me, because we're mining, but as far as worrying about people, you know, the whole thing collapsing and stuff, where are they going to go? They can't take their money out, so they're trapped. So yeah, I don't think Luna collapse would really work in that situation because it's just a different model altogether.
So I would like to say something about this. We have this feature ready, and we decided not to ship this release candidate with it.
Not to say the price won't go down.
Ropsten, but if Ropsten goes fine, we're gonna release it and start testing it live. I think it's actually the other way around. We would want this to be ready before the merge, because otherwise it would mean a database migration for us, for everyone. So it would be much better for all of us to actually have this before the merge, and then don't force our users to migrate or resync their clients.
Oh, you mean so the schema will be changed on your end, right?
Yeah. So the way this works is you don't save the bodies, and then you just request the bodies from the execution layer if they ask you for blocks.
Andrew?
Well, I think if we require it before the merge, then it will delay the merge because we haven't implemented it yet. So I would do it after the merge.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. By the way, what do you use for this feature on the EL side? There is no this kind of methods implemented yet. Are you using the ETH get block by hash?
I believe so. So Raul is not here in this call. He's the one that implemented it, but I believe so. I think he's calling block by block.
Right. So we do have this feature implemented today. It is under test right now. So, but then I think the API itself is a nice to have, but it's not a mandatory type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it is going to be safe to use this method, because you will have to request blocks block by block. I mean, how much stress it will make on EL clients if it will work this way.
One guy says in their chat,
So,
I'm against this. We should
similar
feature
to how
freeze.
we have versioning for the peer-to-peer layer. It feels like we're probably going to want versioning for this. Has that been for this the engine API, since it is a critical part of the infrastructure? Has that been thought about or explored or already solved?
We decided to have like versions since there are not many methods in there. We decided to have a version by method, not like version the entire namespace. And that's like what is stated in the spec currently. So if you update the methods or semantics or blocks or a structure, data structures, so you just
the only thing we're waiting on is the difficulty bomb. Hopefully we hear about that.
Add the version to the end.
And if there's a new method, do you just probe it and see if you get a method not found back?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I was also a bit thinking about it. How do we want to like say, okay, so this is Shanghai. This is the methods that we use for Shanghai and the versions that we use for Shanghai. And this is like the next release. How do we want to scope it out as well? Yeah, that's a good point and good question to think about.
I feel like now that we're closing in on merge, we should probably put deep thought into like what that whole story looks like in terms of like how do we add methods, how do we remove methods, how do we upgrade methods. Sounds like the upgrade methods part is kind of solved with method versioning, but we still need to deal with new methods and deprecated methods between layers. We don't have to do this on this call, but we should probably talk about that before the merge happens, or at least before the first.
Vitalik, he wasn't on the last two.
Version change.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And just to wrap up on this specific call, I think it's pretty clear from EL teams that we don't want to have this be requirements for the merge. Obviously, especially if CLs can kind of hack this functionality by just calling every single block by hash. But yeah, it would be good to just have some comments on the spec so that yeah, the general API makes sense, but we're not planning to implement this before the merge. Does that make sense to everyone?
Everyone. 50 people in their chat. 1 or 2 people talk.
Okay.
Nobody said
Okay, so the last
anything.
thing I had on the merge front was basically following up on the difficulty bomb. I've checked earlier this week, and I think our average block times are like at 13.7-ish seconds. There was an update to like TJ Rush's chart posted a couple days ago, which shows that like clearly, you know, there is some impact from the bomb. It's still kind of quite mild, but obviously these things kind of get exponentially worse every about 100,000 blocks. And I think so there is like another prediction on this on this thread, which roughly targets that like around August is when we would hit 20-ish second blocks. Then in July, we would probably, like second half of July, we would be around like 18-ish seconds. And like second half of June to first half of July, we'd probably be around like 16.5 second blocks. And then like very late August, early September, we'd be back to like 25+ second blocks. I know there was like some conversation on the Discord about this this week. I know, Thomas, you had a thread about this on Twitter.
We got a lot of time, boys.
But I'm curious to just hear from different client teams generally, like where do people stand regarding the bomb? Yeah, Thomas, you have your hand up, so go for it.
Yeah, I would ideally propose to agree today, if possible, for the bomb delay by 3 or 4 months. And just set the date when we introduce that to the clients.
Okay. Anyone else have thoughts on this? Ben?
Do it.
I don't want to advocate for moving the bomb because I just want to keep the pressure up to get this thing done. However, if we are doing Paris early along with Bellatrix, that does give an opportunity without a separate hard fork to set back the bomb by a small amount. 3 to 4 months, I think, is giving ourselves too much of an out. I think we need to keep the pressure on, but a couple of weeks at least take the heat off the block time on mainnet.
Got it. Andrew?
Years? Do years, please. 2 years? Just delay it a couple years, man.
You're on mute, Andrew.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I agree with Thomas. I think we should delay the bomb by 3 or 4 months and just do it. And if the merge happens earlier, then great, because we shouldn't like put pressure for the sake of pressure. We should test it thoroughly. It's a big change. Some pressure is good, but not too much. Like, yeah, I would say 3, 4 months, and it doesn't mean that the merge is delayed by that much amount.
Interesting. Doesn't mean the merge is delayed though. But the difficulty would be.
Anyone else have thoughts?
Huh.
I mean, what isn't done yet for the merge?
Testnet deployment rollout has been bumpy.
I mean, Ropsten was pretty clear that it's going to be a messy situation since it can be attacked in both ways, but I guess that's kind of on us for not launching the beacon chain before setting the TTD.
Right. I'm curious, the other thing though that we had discussed beyond, so like I know Aragon mentioned that like the release they have for Ropsten is an alpha, but I think the other big thing that we wanted to look at was like Hive test coverage. I know, Mikhail, you've been spending a bunch of time on that.
Yeah, and myself and Mario and Barry and Marius are working on this coverage, and I think we have a pretty good progress on that. And from that perspective, I can say that we will not be ready by like before forking the last testnet. So it's like I can say that it's like definitely a no-goer or stopper, like from testing perspective. I think we can do this, and I would not like delay the bomb just because of what happened with Ropsten. We're still planning to have an upgrade on June 8th, as we planned before, and I don't think it should be like anyhow linked to or anyhow be reasoning behind like delaying the bomb. I'm not saying that we should not like push back the bomb. Sorry, but yeah, what happened with Ropsten is not a reason for doing this, as from my perspective.
I totally disagree.
Thomas?
Yeah, so always in favor of bomb being in, and actually I think it works, and I always loved it, and I felt that it was keeping us having to push to be ready for the releases on mainnet. Always know how to push the release if it was starting to extend the block time. So I think it's already hitting in. We know that it will be delaying the blocks. It's actually some significant effect on the network. I think the pressure is there. Like I don't feel that. Generally, at least talking about Nethermind, so I feel that there's enough pressure to keep the team going. Feels like it's a bit too much pressure to like test all the testnets one after another, get the feedback, configurations, proper retesting with all the combinations, sync times, coordination of infra now. With Ropsten, with 2 more testnets, with some additional education, and just saying this is stable version, we don't touching it. I simply think that it will take time to do that properly, and we already are in that place. So if we delay bomb by 3 months, it will keep the pressure at the level where it will keep the pressure to the most likely time when the mainnet will be merged. And it's not affected by the Ropsten at all. So I was thinking of this 3 months delay for a long time, that it's the most likely thing to happen. It's just now I think it's a good time to raise it, because it starts to be actually like late if we decide in 2 weeks and we say that then we add it to the clients in 2 or 3 weeks after decision, because we need to prepare the releases with that, then it would be 4 or 5 weeks from now when we would delay the bomb. And you know, it's also additional hassle to prepare the release for the bomb delay. So we don't want to rush it.
My man, don't rush it.
And we don't want to do that every 2 weeks by 2 weeks. Like then we would have to do that at every single core dev call.
My man.
Lucas?
Okay, just to have a comment maybe on Peter, that what Peter said, that in my opinion a bit what shows the readiness are Hive tests, and this shows like unhappy paths instead of what we are mostly testing in shadow forks. So yeah, looking at Hive tests, every client has multiple tests failing, and maybe we'll be able to fix those issues before remerge, but this generates more pressure.
Take the pressure away, boys. Just set it back a couple months. It's all good. Year, 6 months, 2 years. Do it. Take your time.
Anyone else have thoughts on this?
Do we have a time to wait at least until we see a grade on Ropsten and how it goes eventually before we make this decision?
Nope. No time.
Right. Like, and I think, you know, one thing for sure is I would like us, I don't think we can really make a decision today, given there's like no EIP, there's no like actual proposal for people to review. It does seem that like the people who want to delay the bomb, like a 3-4 month delay is like what seems to be like proposed. So just to put this in perspective, it means that like we're basically in June now, that like 3 months from now would be July, August, September. So it's like on September 1st, we'd be like in the same spot as we are today. basically where like blocks are starting to slow, but there's, you know, from an end user perspective, it still doesn't make like a noticeable difference. So yeah, we'd be like roughly at that stage in September. And yeah, I guess, yeah, POTUS, there's like a bunch of conversation in the chat about your point around big blocks. Do you want to take like a few seconds to just kind of tell people about your concerns there?
I'm just worried that it's not something that we have been actively testing. The consensus layer is very, very sensitive to timing issues. If we get large blocks that take long to execute, would affect attestations, would affect which nodes, the way nodes are syncing, nodes that get these blocks close to the fork would stop syncing for a little bit until the engine catches up. If we see this situation with forks, for example, would make me very, very worried at the time of the fork. And I would want to test it. So I actually suspect that not delaying the bomb would actually delay the merge because we want to test this.
So what I guess what I don't understand is why do you assume the blocks themselves would be bigger? Basically, are you assuming that like people would raise the gas limit, or like why? Because like the bombs just means the blocks are more infrequent, but it doesn't change like the block.
Yeah,
size.
correct. So this was in reply. This was in reply of the bunch of people arguing that we should raise the gas limit at the same time to account for the blocks being later.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So basically, that if like people are unhappy because like say there's 20-second block times, then they decide to like raise the gas limit 50% because of to get like roughly the same throughput. Then you get much bigger blocks, right? But it's
Yeah. So I think a timing difference by itself is if the blocks stay small enough and they just are delayed between the timing between themselves is not the same as the slot time that we have now. This is not an issue. This at the very worst can affect like ETH1 voting, but I think we've tested this already.
Okay, got it. Anyone else have just comments they wanted to make about this? Okay, maybe one more thing I'll pick on from the chat. Marius, you mentioned that like you think it's actually too early to discuss the bomb pushback, like, and that's like kind of the opposite of what Thomas was saying. So yeah, do you want to elaborate on that a bit?
Not really, no.
Perfect.
He sounds mad, dude.
I think there have been a bunch of great arguments for doing it now, and there have been a bunch of ones for not doing it now. I really want to avoid us having to push back the bomb twice. I think that is the worst thing that we can do. I think pushing back the bomb once already is really bad because we have to update all, like we have to schedule another fork. And it's not about the scheduling, it's not about the it's about the coordination of the community. And I think we might lose some people if we schedule another delay, bomb pushback. I think it's fine to do it on a technical merit, but I'm not seeing a technical merit at the moment. And I think teams should really strive to hit the timelines, and yeah, it would be really good for you guys to, or for us to hit the timelines that we set ourselves. That's all I can say.
That's big.
Okay. So, and then yeah, there's another comment in the chat about like combining this with Paris. realistically, you know, Paris is only going to happen after like the other testnets have happened, maybe like roughly around the same time as Sepolia. So like, you know, there's no world in which like this is less than like a month or a month and a half away, which would be like, I don't know, mid-July-ish, which is somewhere between like 16 and 18 seconds block times if this chart is correct. It gets very hard to predict once the bomb actually goes in. But like for the people who like want to delay the bomb, does that like generally make sense as a timeline, like where we make the decision about like including it with Paris, but there's if we kind of do that, it means we for sure will hit at least 16, probably.
Hit that like button if you guys haven't.
Thomas?
Check us out on Discord, Twitter, all that right there.
So I'm looking at the chart that was included as a block time prediction by Tokeji from 24th of May. It's attached to the discussion for the today. And I think we're planning now the merge for August, right? This is the optimistic scenario that probably the biggest optimists were talking about August. And this chart is showing like 25 seconds towards the end of August, right? So is everyone happy with going towards 25 seconds blocks?
Andrew?
Yeah, I think that's the big problem, because we are artificially reducing the capacity of the network, and it's a disservice to the users. I was also thinking like maybe we can combine the merge delay with something useful, like because this idea was surfaced that we set the TTD for the mainnet to something artificially large, and maybe we can do that alongside delaying the bomb. So it's kind of not our final merge release or semi-final, and the merge itself is not happening yet, but we are doing something useful for the merge along with delay.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was suggesting. And I think if we were to do that, we would still hit at least 16, if not like likely 18-ish second blocks by the time that happens. So it's not like it's not 25 seconds, obviously, but yeah, it does mean that like we do.
Is that Tim talking?
Longer block times,
which is already bad enough. Like we should try to improve the capacity rather than hurt it.
Yeah. Thomas, your hand is up.
So I think that we definitely want to push the merge at the time when the network is stable, predictable, where people think that's okay if the merge changes by 1 or 2 days, that we don't have to rush it, when people will not be in the last week taking rash decisions, because if they miss it, then suddenly it's 30 or 35 seconds and it's already like causing turmoil with what miners do. So if at the same time as we introduce merge, miners keep voting the changes on the block sizes, on the block times change, it's just a lot of additional variables to take into account when calculating, when filling how we plan. So I simply want to operate in the conditions where network is very predictable and there's no additional pressure from different sources about like how we should act.
My man, Thomas. Thomas, we love you, baby.
Okay, and Marius, I think you had like another comment.
Yeah, I don't think 20-second block times are bad. And in Amsterdam, we kind of made the had the overall view that degraded user experience for 2 months is worth it if we can ship the merge faster. Yeah, I think we're looking at like I don't know, 5-7 10 years of like things, and so I don't see the point in focusing on 2 months of like slightly higher block times.
Slightly higher. Our average right now is 13.7. Hold on, 13.7.
Yeah, I was just curious.
They want to
if
push it to
someone could
20,
put,
slightly
like, a
higher.
specific number of like days or something on the delay that in like an additional fork for difficulty bump delay would mean, because I mean I know Marius said earlier that like having, I think it was Marius, having more than one delay would be the worst case. I'm just wondering why that would be the case. Why can't we just have a really small delay, and then potentially have another one later if it's, unless it's like a big extra effort. That's what I'm wondering.
It's almost 2x, bro. My God.
Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
I think like small delay, the problem is that we don't want to delay it too often, like delaying it by 2 weeks, then we decide, oh no, 2 weeks is not enough, then delay it by 2 weeks again, and so on. That's kind of wasteful. And to Marius' point, I disagree. I think, well, like our priority should be serving the users of the network, and the merge is only a means to that end. And to my mind, if like what's the downside of delaying the merge? If we keep paying the miners, it's not a big deal. It's much better than hurting the users, in my opinion.
My man. Go ahead, Andrew.
Thomas.
So, one thing that I wouldn't agree with is operating under assumption that not delaying the bomb speeds up the delivery. So I just see all the engineers working at the limits now. So it starts hurting productivity. So I don't think delaying the bomb is actually speeding. Not delaying the bomb is speeding things up. That people will magically generate additional firepower to hit those times.
Peter.
Okay, I think we're kind of debating two fairly far out extremes. One is not delaying at all the bomb. The other is delaying it by 3 to 4 months, which some people find excessive. Would a middle ground work? For example, what would happen if we were to delay the difficulty bomb by, say, 2 months? That would maybe relieve the pressure of getting to 20-second block times, and we would not have to bear the burn from the community that Ethereum is too expensive to use. Yet we wouldn't just lose the timeline completely. So is there a specific reason why we would like to push it by 4 months instead of just pushing it by a little to leave breathing? Obviously 2 weeks is pointless.
Good job, Peter.
But let's say, I don't know, 1-2 months, that's...
Yes.
It's well, to my mind, 2 months is reasonable. 2 months is kind of a good enough time that to help us go through the testing thoroughly and like improve the quality. Yeah, so I would be happy with 2 months.
Thomas,
Yeah,
sorry.
My suggestion of 3-4 months. My suggestion of 3-4 months was based on the calculations, based on the fork schedule and assumptions of around 2 months of operating with the frozen code, with preparation for mainnet and communication with the community about like the details and confirming like what's the adoption percentage of all the new clients on both sides and so on and so on. But don't take it as a like something that I say either 3 months or nothing. It's definitely just a suggestion that I believe that 3 or 4 months is the most likely effective delay. But yeah, I'm open to support any solution that will make us start preparing the EIP and start preparing releases with the bomb move. How exactly? What's the exact number of blocks that we move it by? this can be decided at the very last moment.
So I
I
guess
just don't want to not start preparing.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I guess based on this, my rough feeling is that if we were to delay it, like 2-ish months delay, that's maybe coupled with Paris, in order to like minimize the amount of client releases that go out. So it means, you know, this delay would happen like towards the ends of the test nets, but give us like some breathing room between the last test nets.
Sorry, Tim.
Yeah.
What is Paris?
So basically, if we do put out a release of if we put out a release of the consensus, the execution layer clients, that is where we have like a really high TTD at around the same time as we plan kind of the the Sepolia fork, so that we can hit Bellatrix on mainnet before. That's maybe like the right time to also have a bomb delay when we're releasing something that's like basically we hope to be stable for mainnet, but we also need to run through Bellatrix before, so you can just have a hard fork with the bomb at the same time. Yeah, that's kind of what I meant.
I'm glad he asked, because this whole time I didn't know what Paris is, and it makes me feel better that the developers don't even know what Paris is.
Following what? So setting a TTD on mainnet doesn't make it a hard fork. So as long as that TTD doesn't hit, it's just completely irrelevant whether it's set or not set.
Yes,
so,
correct. Yeah. So we set it to a really high. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
We need it for the consensus layer, and
correct.
That's what.
So it's like. So this. So
yes.
Marius sounds defeated, bro.
We discussed this like the first half of the call, but I think the idea is like we need to put out a release, or we would like to put out a release which activates the Bellatrix forks on the consensus layer on mainnet roughly around the same time as we have the release for testnets. Like the fork doesn't activate at the same time, but it's ideally the same software. At that time, it would be good if there are EL client releases which also have the merge changes that are ready, even though they're not activated. And so what I was proposing is that the same kind of release also contains like a bomb pushback.
That'd be nice, Hopius.
With a hard fork. Basically.
Members only? I only have like 4 members, so if I did members only chat, only like 4 of you would be talking.
Oh, so it's just because the CLs need to know, they need to be able to query a version of the EL client which like knows that the engine API exists, and so that's what I'm calling Paris. Yeah.
And it also may contain this fork next value for we can actually set it to something realistic for the merge as a means to, and that will actually be part of the. Or like you can think of it as a hard fork. So
no, actually you cannot do that, because if we hit that before the TTD triggers, then whole mainnet will fall apart.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're already over time. I do think, like obviously we're not going to make a decision about this today. I think someone who feels strongly about delaying the bomb should try and draft together an EIP that we can maybe discuss on the next call a bit more. Yeah, and I'm happy to like help put you in touch with previous bomb delay EIP authors if someone wants to draft this. And I think in parallel, it's just worth thinking about like what the activation of that would look like. You know, what are the right parts in the process to couple it with? But clearly, we're not going to resolve this in like a minute and a half on this call.
Dang it.
Real quick clarification question. When you say 2 months, 2 months from what? 2 months from the time we release this patch, or 2 months from today, or 2 months from the planned mainnet TTD?
2 months worth of blocks. So
yes.
You're adding that 2 months worth of blocks, so around 400,000 blocks.
Oh, onto the TTD calculator. Sorry, not
the bomb
onto
calculation.
The difficulty calculator thing. Okay.
So you go for
the bomb delay is
2 months
counted
from
in
the
number
previous
of
bomb.
blocks.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so 2 months from the original bomb
Yes.
timer.
So 2 months, that means that like 2 months from now, so now we're June. So that means that in July, at beginning of August, you start having like 13.7-ish block times rather than having them right now.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you write the EIP, it's like a pretty simple EIP to write. You literally take the number that's in the last EIP and you add 2 months worth of blocks at like a 13-second average to it.
That's good news.
Okay, we're already 5 minutes over, but I said we would stay 5 minutes over in the chat for the 2 people who had EIP updates. So
we're going to discuss all this in
y'all
just a
can
second,
bear
guys.
with me another 5 minutes. I think we can cover those and hopefully have like a specific bomb EIP to discuss on the next call. George, you had an update on 4844 with some optimizations for the transaction pool.
Hey team, so I feel a bit weird doing this like sharding discussion after this very important like merge thing. But anyway, since I'm supposed to talk about the EIP, I'll give like a very short update. The idea is that we want to do proto-dunk sharding at some point after the merge happens. We are gonna introduce blobs into transactions with proto-dunk sharding. We got reports by Peter, I think, in Amsterdam, that the current approach of like verifying the blobs and the commitments in the transactions is pretty slow.
We'll talk about it, guys.
In terms of like, you know, when you get a transaction on the mempool, it's pretty slow to verify, and this might cause problems like TOS and stuff. So we wrote a PR which makes this process of verifying proto-dunk sharding transactions extremely much faster by introducing KZG proofs. Because before, like we were using KZGs just for building commitments for the rollups and stuff. We were not using KZG proofs anywhere in it. So by using KZG proofs, we're able to like verify transactions much, much faster, like from 40 milliseconds per transaction to like 2.5 milliseconds. And the same for blobs. I'm not gonna go into the math of how this works. I tried to write a pretty comprehensive how-to on the PR that requires a bit of knowledge about KZGs, but not too much. And yeah, this is like the summary. Let me know if you have questions, and maybe we can discuss it in the next ACD. I don't want to take more of your time.
Sorry, I was muted on YouTube. Okay, so I just said I'm going to post a link to the PR in the chat in case people want to give feedback on it. And then last thing, we have Peter, who's been looking into EIP 2537, which is this DLS precompile EIP that has long been kind of pending. And he was also interested in trying to revive that and look at what the current status is. Peter, do you want to give us a quick update?
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Yeah, because we're over time, I'll be as quick as possible and quite kind of concise. So, like, as
you
Tim
want me
says,
a new chair? Give me money.
2537 enables
Otherwise, I'm
carrying
keeping
operations in the new precompiles. It's just a quick reminder that we are only one step away from the activation of this wonderful EIP. So this, activating this EIP could unlock, a lot of new use cases on top of Ethereum ecosystem. So the summary is that the implementation of EIP 2537 is actually completed. It's in the code base right now. It's actually only the pending activation of this, functionality, and it's not really that hard. And the activation of this functionality actually just enable the precompiles by editing the core /VM/contracts.go file. So just to enable this, just like what we have done for the Byzantine, Istanbul, or Berlin. Although it's just maybe there's another point to mention, but there could exist another, implementation that is, slightly more performant regarding to gas consumption and running time compared to this existing implementation. But, as this work has been, already done, merged into the code base, I believe that, we activate this BLS existing 2537 implementation.
Didn't they say they were
would
ending
be
this
the
like 10
best.
minutes ago?
It's just a reminder to revive this thread to the community. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Is it only implemented in Go Ethereum, or is it also in Nethermind, Besu, and Aragon?
I know it's in at least, I believe Nethermind and one other have implemented it. I also know that Marius is starting some fuzzing work on that set of precompiles in Geth versus Blast, and then also, basically everything that the ETH2 clients are using. So I think there is still some active work going on with regards to security for the precompiles. And on the performance, I do think there is about a 2x performance gain with the other library. So obviously still a decision to be made about whether that's worth changes.
So we've been fuzzing the Killage implementation against Gnark, consensus Gnark, for half a year now. And I'm currently adding BLST to that fuzzing thing, and it's on OSS fuzz, so it should be pretty good there.
He sounds defeated, man.
Fantastic. Yeah, and BLST has been fuzzed against Relic and some big num libraries as well in OSS fuzz for about a year as well.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, given we're 10 minutes over, I think we can wrap up here. Thanks a lot, everybody. And yeah, talk to you all next week on the consensus layer call, and then 2 weeks from now on this call. And don't forget to upgrade your Ropsten nodes in the next few days. Yeah, thanks, all.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye,
Yeah.
everyone. So, bye.
Okay, man, we got a lot to discuss, guys and girls. Wow, that was awesome. That was a good call, man. Wow. Man, where do I start? I'll do a video on this as well, of course, but wow, man. So yeah, I think the best title for this, I think, in my opinion, the best way to say this is, oh, this music sucks. Is it an unofficial? I would call it an unofficial delay. Like it. I mean, it was pretty obvious that most people wanted the delay. I thought that was really awesome. Obviously, it's in my benefit. It was great. My overall thoughts were it was great hearing from other people, because usually on these dev calls, it's the same 2-3 people. It's like Marius, Tim, who's the other guy who always freaking talks, man? Andrew talks a lot. Peter. But that, I mean, that's about it, man. Maybe one or two others talk, but this time, this was a great call. And I'm not just saying that because it benefits me, because obviously it does, but this call was fantastic. Comparison to the other calls. It was straight to the point. So to recap again, I'll do a video on this. To recap, but I'm going to do it for you guys because you're live. To recap, basically, the moment the dev call started, they talked about the attack. Someone trolled the network for Ropsten, and it showed, they basically raised the hash rate artificially. I believe it's artificially. And just show them how easy it is for people to attack. Now, some people were saying that does not really affect the mainnet. That's just more of an attack on testnet. Some people argued that, hey, if they can do it on testnet, they can do it on mainnet. All right, I don't really know the truth there. It's hard to say. Got a little bit of clarification. So we're in Ropsten right now. Then we go to Goerli. I think that's how you say it. Goerli. Then we go to Sepolia. And then we go mainnet, or Bellatrix, also known as Bellatrix Fork, if I do understand that correctly. They proposed early on 8 to 10 June, and it seemed like things were going that way. difficulty bomb currently is about 13.7-ish time, because it is in effect. If you didn't know that, it is in effect right now, but it's about 13.7 block times at the moment, and it still seemed like that's something they wanted to go. But then towards the end of the call is where things got great. It got better for us miners specifically. Now, the way they worded it didn't seem like it was for miners, and I want to remember who the guy was. Andrew was killing it, man. Andrew was saying some good stuff. Marius was saying some fantastic stuff, and I kind of paraphrased it here. Andrew said, we shouldn't just do the merge just for the sake of doing the merge. The point is to serve the end user, and I think that was really powerful, and that meant a lot to me. And I mean, that's what it's all about, you would think, right? It's not about let's just merge just to merge. Let's just do it, right? That's not what it's about. There's a lot of people investing in this. There's a lot of people who have time in Ethereum who, there are people who like Ethereum out there, and it's not about just, man, this naked person is just constantly making these accounts, huh? It's not about just, let's just do it. Let's go and see what happens. No, right? And so there was actually a lot of people that spoke out this time. Usually they are not a lot of people speaking, like I said, and it felt like an overwhelming majority that was speaking that was like, dude, we need to delay this. This needs to be delayed. And for the first time, we actually, in my opinion, got some answers, and I thought it was awesome. We got to hear, more importantly, from other people, because there was 50 people on this call, and usually there's anywhere from 40 to 50 people, and generally we get 3 to 4 people talking, maybe 5 on a good day. And this was our third one in a row watching, and yeah, great to hear from other developers. Finally we get to hear what other developers are thinking, and they're saying, and if I take myself out, it's not about the money. If I take myself out from thinking about the money, what is the most important thing is success from a launch, right? And most of them felt, in my opinion, from what I was hearing, most of them felt they're not ready, right? And another important thing to mention, these 2-week delays, right? These 2-week delays are killing them, because they say, okay, it's delayed for 2 weeks. Then they have to redo all this other stuff. I don't really know all the details of what they're exactly redoing over and over, but it's setting them back, right? Like, if you keep pushing the merge back 2 weeks, like they have kind of been talking about these test nets and everything, 2 weeks, it just screws them up more and more and more. And so a lot of them proposed, I believe it was Thomas, if I'm not mistaken. Thomas initially, this is the MVP right here, because before Thomas started speaking on this, really nobody was chiming in. But as soon as it took one guy to speak up, and it was Thomas, and then Andrew backed him, and then everybody was backing him, man. It felt like, except for Marius. Marius sounded defeated, I would say. Like, you could hear it in his voice. He just wants this merge to happen. Let's do it. It doesn't matter. And he said, and I believe this is a direct quote, could be a little off on a couple words. In Amsterdam, 20-second blocks are not that bad. And again, to give you, for those who just came in, we are currently at an average of about 13.7-ish block time, says Tim. And so, 13.7 to 20, I mean, it's not exactly a 2x, but that's massive difference. And he played it off like, well, it's not that big a deal. Yeah, we're just gonna nearly double the block time. Not a big deal, not a big change. Oh, thank you for subscribing. Oh, that must be on my Twitch. Thank you. Thought we got a member. I gotta turn that off. That's for my Twitch, I think. Yeah, and so some major news there. Major news after major news. Great call. What else did I miss? Paris. They mentioned what Paris was. I felt like that wasn't that important, so I didn't write it down, considering a lot of the devs didn't even know what it was. Even the major developers had no idea what it was. I was listening to what they were saying. Didn't seem that serious to me. At the end of the day, we didn't get an official, is this delayed or not? And that is basically because they ran out of time. Great dev call. honestly. And even if they were, I would say this, even if they were going to merge on time, I would still be saying that this was a great dev call either way, regardless of the result, because it was much better than what we're used to. Much better dev call. Like I said, right out the bat, right out the gate, getting to the point, talking about what everybody wants to hear. The middle was, you know, of course, a lot more developy, you know, talking, which makes sense. I mean, it's a dev call, right? Like those things are going to happen. That's kind of the point of what is happening. Otherwise, you would just check out Twitter and you would get the TLDR, or watch someone like myself and give you the 10-minute version. But great call from beginning to end. So is it officially delayed? Again, I'm gonna title this unofficially. It is unofficially delayed around 2 to 3 months. Unofficial. I don't know if it's, you know, it could be complicated. I'm sure it's complicated because of all the money that's involved. Are they the ones making that decision? You know, this is my opinion. Are the investors the one that make that decision? I don't really know. Maybe they need to talk off camera to really say officially, yes, it is delayed. But it sounded like we are unofficially going to be delayed. And that's all thanks to Thomas and Andrew really starting that debate, really starting that discussion, which led into everybody else that never gets to speak finally talk. And it could be one of those things, like, you know, when like your boss is doing something dumb and you don't want to say it because you're kind of scared, and it just sometimes takes that one person, you know. These aren't miners. I mean, they might also mine on the side, but these aren't like miners. These are people involved in Ethereum. And it sounded like the way that they all suddenly spoke, right? When they don't speak for dev call after dev call, month after month, never talking, and then all of a sudden, all of them joining in and just, you know, they had to cut off people. There were so many people that were adamant about not doing it all at once. That tells me, right? That shows me, again, my opinion here, this is not factual, but that shows me that they've all been thinking this. They've all been wanting to delay this, but they were too scared to do it. And it just took Thomas and then Andrew and then everybody else to say, we need to stop doing this, because you'll generally hear Marius, who is, that guy loves the merge, man. He wants to push it regardless of what's going on, right? You'll hear a little bit of Micah and you'll hear Tim. And, you know, you'll hear all the people who are for pushing it. And so it was great to finally hear the other people speak their mind. Awesome dev call, man. I am very happy with this dev call. I am impressed by this dev call, and that was awesome. That was incredible. Wow, great dev call, guys. So yeah, I would call it, and you guys can call it what you want as well. Hey guys, make sure to join the Discord if you haven't. I don't know why somebody, what is this? I put a Tinkerbell, dude. We got a lot of people in the Discord now, man. A couple thousand people now. Yeah, it's crazy, man, to think about. We were at like 1,000. Because to be honest with you, I've had this Discord for years for my other channel, DJWars22, which I don't use anymore. And I think we had close to 1,000 already. So it might even be close to 3,000. I need to check. Honestly, I don't know. But yeah, join the Discord, man. We got more and more people in here, and it's pretty awesome. I don't know. How do I check how many people are actually in here? I have no idea. Because it stopped showing you. Once you hit 1,000, you can't see you're offline anymore. Okay. Oh, members maybe? 2,758 people, guys. Wow. 2,000. I don't know if you can see it. It might be a little small for you. 2,758. My God. That is a lot of people in a Discord. Oh man, thank you guys. Thank you, seriously, I love all of you. And so the next thing, what is up next? We got some big things going on in the crypto world today. You can check out Son of a Tech right now. He is live. He's got 400 people. We also have my boy, the Hobbyist Miner. This is what I think you should really check out. If you can only check out one thing, I think this is going to be a dev call. I don't want to spoil it. If Hobbyist Miner in chat would like to give a TLDR of some of the topics coming up, then feel free to do that. I will post this link, and I really think you guys should check this out. Also, I believe the I believe, what is going on here? Let me see. So, dude, somebody was saying, yeah, no problem, the Hobbyist Miner. Check it out, dude. Somebody said that the great hash rate migration was going on today. I had no idea. Like, I'm so surprised that I'm shocked that nobody was talking about this. Like, you would think that they would have hit me up or something, and then I could have like told my audience, but it's too late, man. I think I'm gonna miss this time because it's too late. Freaking noon. I gotta go take my kids out. I got a lot of stuff to do today. So yeah, I would have participated, man. If I would have known, I would have planned it out, but that's unfortunate. But yeah, guys, please do check this out. It's 12:30. It's 12:30, guys. Check it out. This is gonna be a big video. Like, the Hobbyist Miner is interviewing Daniel Keller from Flux, and a lot of big things are coming out of this one. I'm a huge fan of Flux. I'm a big advocate for Flux, and I look forward to watching this. So yeah, I gotta go take my kids out, man. I got a lot of shit to do today. I love every single one of you. I hope you have a great day. Please do check out Crypt if you ever want to get merchandise. And, oh, this is my old shirt. Look, this is the old one. I just noticed they have the new stuff on there. You get Flux, you get Ergo. Check out the Hobbyist Miner on there as well. Everything, link in the description below. Save you 10%. I love every single one of you, and I hope you have a great day. It's DJ Minds signing out. Great dev call today. Fantastic dev call. See you guys later.